Good day to all. Comrades and friends, this is Global Weekly News, serial number 13. First, we will go to Brazil. Elections in Brazil. Brazil is the largest country in South America. On 2nd October, first round elections are going to take place for President, Vice President, Parliament or Congress and state assemblies. The main contest for the post of President is between the incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro and the Workers' Party leader Lula da Silva. The pre-poll opinion polls on 15th September indicate 45% votes for Lula and 33% for Bolsonaro. As per another survey on 19th September, Lula is progressing to get 47% votes, whereas his opponent's vote share gets reduced to 31% only. There is great expectation that Lula will get more than 50% votes in the first round itself and get elected as the new president. This is most likely to happen. Before the election date on 2nd October, Lula's percentage votes will go up and Bolsonaro's vote percentage will get reduced. If no candidate gets more than 50% votes, the second round election will take place on 30th October. Between the two main contestants, people are crazy to know the outcome. If Lula da Silva is able to get elected as the new president in the first round itself, he can successfully face the deep economic, social and political crisis. Homeless and people suffering from hunger are more in Brazil. Lula's party shall get majority in the parliament also, that is Congress also. Then only Lula can reverse the privatization policy of Bolsonaro. In the past, there were many achievements during the presidency of Lula da Silva and later on under Dilma Rousseff. If Lula wins the first round, Bolsonaro will make hell of a cry regarding election fraud and all that. When Bolsonaro spoke to his supporters on 7th September, Independence Day of Brazil, he enthused them, his supporters, to give victory to him at any cost. But in a podcast interview, Bolsonaro promised to hand over power if he gets defeated. Will elections be free and fair in Brazil? Well, this is a $1,000 question. Let us wait and see. The second, torture of political prisoners in Egypt. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the president of Egypt from 2013 onwards. He seized power through a coup. The opposition parties, human rights groups, journals and trade unions all are facing a severe government repression. Out of 120,000 prisoners in jail or 120,000 prisoners in jail in Egypt, 65,000 are political prisoners. In the first few days, the health of 3 political prisoners got deteriorated and died in the prison due to lack of proper medical treatment. 1,100 prisoners have so far died in the prisons in Egypt from 2013, as per the data of human rights groups. Even the former president of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi, died in the prison in 2019. 27th UN Climate Change Conference, COP27, will be held in Egypt from 6th of November to 18th of November. Human Rights Watch has released a report stating that the government is repressing the independent environmentalists and their organizations. Alaa Abdel Fattah, a prisoner in jail, is undergoing hunger strike fast for the past 6 months against the very bad conditions in jail and against the dictatorial rule. Mohammed Hussein, the journalist of Al Jazeera, is in jail for the past 4 years without any charge sheet or without any inquiry. The third item, we go to Israel. Israel's attacks on Syria. Israel's aggression inside Syria is taking place third time in this month itself. Israel has attacked Syria hundreds of times in violation of UN Charter from the year 2011 onwards. On 31st August of this year, 31st August night, Israel conducted aerial attacks on the areas surrounding Damascus airport. Material damage was there, but no casualties of human lives. Syria's missile defense system shot down some Israeli missiles. Israel has not declared anything on its attacks on Syria from 2011. On rare occasions, Israel said they only target Iranians in Syria. Syrian government complained to United Nations again and again on the violations of Syria's sovereignty and violation of international laws. But United Nations has so far refused to take any action. The international society, including the Western media, have refused to recognize the violations of Israel. As per the request of Syrian government, UN Permanent Security Council member Russia has stationed its troops in Syria. Russia has condemned Israel's aggressions. As per UN reports, only 70% area is under the control of Syrian government. Israel has not targeted military camps of Syria. European countries have withdrawn sanctions on Syria's aero companies. At this time, Israel is attacking Syria's airports. Air passengers are at risk to take the journey. The fourth item, a very important item, we go to the case of Julian Assange. Julian Assange is an Australian journalist and the founder of WikiLeaks Media. He has been fighting a political battle for over a decade against attempts of United States to arrest him. Julian Assange exposed the war crimes of US and its allies on Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. He also exposed their violations of international laws. Assange was forced to live in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for fear of being extradited from June 2012 until April 2019 after being granted asylum by former progressive Ecuadorian president Rafael Correa. Rafael Correa was the president of Ecuador from 2007 to 2017. So he granted asylum to Assange, and Assange was living in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. In 2019, Rafael Correa's successor, conservative Lenin Moreno, demonstrated his subservience to US and expelled Assange from the embassy, handing him over to the United Kingdom police. On 11th April 2019, Assange was arrested at the request of the US and since then has been held in London's Belmarsh prison. For the past 3 years, he has been subjected to a strenuous judicial process that seeks to extradite him. Extradite means sending compulsorily to US. Extradite him to the US to stand trial before a federal grand jury in USA on a total of 18 charges, 17 of them under the Espionage Act, carrying a total maximum prison sentence of 175 years. Imagine 175 years jail sentence. One cannot live that long. On 17th June, UK Home Secretary Priti Patel sanctioned his extradition to the US. Assange appealed this extradition order on 1st July and a decision regarding the appeal is due later this month. Mexican government has made through President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, AMLO, a request to US government that Julian Assange be granted political asylum and refuge in Mexico. Julian Assange is like David against Goliath, a small group facing a great power, but at the same time representing the desires, struggles, and freedoms of all humanity. Julian Assange's father, John Shipton, and his brother Gabriel Shipton accepted the keys to the city handed over by head of government of Mexico City. The keys to the city are a honorary recognition granted to important personalities. Comrades, let us go to Afghanistan. Afghanistan, people are in great peril, danger. As winter approaches, the United Nations Security Council should set aside differences and urgently focus on how to send assistance to Afghanistan's impoverished poor people. The Taliban came to power last August in 2021. The dire situation in Afghanistan is currently experiencing is reflected by the fact that it has the highest prevalence of insufficient food consumption in the world, with as high as 92% of Afghan households struggling to meet their food needs as per UN data. The World Health Organization has reported tens of thousands of children are being admitted every month for emergency medical treatment for acute malnutrition. Many others in remote areas are unable to get help and have starved to death. Over 1 million children under 5, especially at risk of dying when deprived of food, are suffering from prolonged acute malnutrition, meaning that even if they survive, they face significant health problems, including stunting. That is what World Health Organization says. The World Bank has also estimated that Afghanistan's economic output has shrunk by 30% since August 2021, when the Taliban took over. Only 40% of $4.4 billion or 440 crore dollars required for the United Nations 2022 humanitarian response plan for Afghanistan had been received so far. Only 40% of the promised human aid has been received. The savings of the Afghan people, $9 billion, are breached in US banks. Only now $3.5 billion is released. A year after the Taliban took over power, teenage girls are still barred from school, and women are barred from working in offices and required to cover themselves from head to toe in public. The media in Afghanistan has been facing continued attack and persecution at the hands of Taliban, from physical assaults, threats, and harassment to censorship and harsh restrictions. Finally, we go to Samarkand of Uzbekistan, where SCO summit was held. Shanghai Cooperation Organization was formed in 2001 with 8 countries, which are Russia, China, India, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Pakistan. SCO is the largest regional bloc. 40% of world's population live in this region. This region produces 30% of world's gross domestic product. Today's summit meet of SCO was held at Samarkand of Uzbekistan on 15th and 16th of September. SCO's permanent members, China and Russia, through a joint statement, they condemned US atrocious interference in Ukraine and Taiwan. US attempts are in the direction of creating unipolar world. Iran has applied for Shanghai Cooperation Organization full membership last year in 2021. Iran has been as the observer status from 2005. In SCO summit, Iran has signed a memorandum of understanding for full membership. By this, Iran can face economic and political barriers by US and its allies. The US has imposed numerous political and economic sanctions on Iran since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. The sanctions were suspended after the signing of the Iran nuclear deal in 2015. However, they were restored after former US President Donald Trump decided to unilaterally withdraw from the deal in May 2018. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi said in an interview with Al Jazeera that the US under Joe Biden is not sincere about restoring the Iran nuclear deal, as it has imposed fresh sanctions on Iran even amid talks. Putin reiterated the Russian position on Taiwan, saying that it stands for one China. He also criticized the provocations of US and their allies' satellites in the South China Sea. This is all Global Weekly News item serial number 13. See you next week. Thank you, comrades. Lord Salam.